My name is Rabbi Eliyahu ben David, and I should not be here. I tasted death, not the poetic kind that leaves you weeping at gravesides or dreaming of angels, but the kind that strips your soul bare and brings you face to face with the eternal fire. What I saw, what I was shown, has lived inside me like a second heartbeat, pulsing with dread and mercy. For years I remained silent, but the silence became sin, and a vow, once made between breath and ash, must now be kept. Even now, I'm afraid to speak it, because to speak it is to relive it, and to relive it is to return to the moment I died. You may scroll past, you may scoff or analyze or debate, but know this: the moment you choose not to listen, something eternal slips past you, and once it's gone, it may never return. I speak now not from boldness, but from trembling obedience, because I was sent back with a message I never asked to carry, a message that is weight and fire and blood. And if you do not take this seriously, if you dare to brush this off like dust from your screen, then hear me. He is not mocked. These words echoed in the place beyond time, and they still burn behind my ribs. He is not mocked. You will remember that when the ground splits. You will remember it when the sky turns against you. You will remember it when no algorithm can save you. Texas was shown to me in fire. I didn't understand it at first. Why Texas? Why would a land so proud, so fierce, be at the center of such divine wrath? But now, I know, because pride never escapes judgment, and the cries of the forgotten never go unheard. I saw it, drenched in water, scorched in flame, torn in spirit. And this is why I beg you, not with gimmicks, not with charm, but with fear and trembling. Subscribe now. Because this testimony is not entertainment, it's a lifeline. And if you cannot feel the weight of that, then I fear for your soul more than my own. If your pride keeps your finger from pressing that button, I invite you, go to the comments right now. Tell us all why. Confess it in public. Let the world witness what heaven already sees. Let your refusal echo in a chamber far louder than this video. But know this, some of you will wish you had clicked. Some of you will dream of this moment when it's already too late. He is not mocked. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. Now I am calling yours. Return. Return to the fire. Return before the flood. Return before the silence. Because this is not just a story, it's a sentence, and the judge is not blind. This is your final warning before the veil lifts. And when it does, you will see. You will see. Before the veil was torn, before the fire and the flood and the silence, I was just a man of tradition, a rabbi, a teacher, a shepherd of the old words. I woke up each day with order in my bones and liturgy on my lips. The prayers came easy. The Torah sat heavy in my hands like something I'd mastered, when in truth it had only ever mastered me. I walked among scrolls and shadows, ancient echoes etched into parchment and breath. People came to me for answers. They called me wise. They called me chosen, and I believed them. That was my first blindness. I mistook routine for righteousness. I wore the garments. I spoke the language of holiness. I fasted. I wept. I tithed. I even taught that the kingdom was near. But the kingdom was far from me. My heart was swollen with pride, dressed in humility's costume. I was a performer on a sacred stage, applauded by men, unknown by heaven. I thought I had arrived. I thought the narrow path was now wide beneath my feet, and still, he called my name in the dark. But I did not answer. Not yet, because I was busy speaking my own name in the light. The days were beautiful, I will not lie. Shabbat dinners with candlelight reflecting in silver, old songs sung in low tones, the laughter of children echoing through the synagogue walls, the scent of baked challah and worn-out leather prayer books, the soft hush that falls when the word is read aloud. It all felt eternal, untouchable, safe. But what is safety without surrender? Even the ark was touched by fire when judgment came, and I was no ark. Beneath all the liturgy, a sickness had begun, a subtle rot, the kind no man sees until it's too late. I had replaced awe with knowledge, replaced surrender with ceremony. I was admired, but I was not known, not by him. I had built a fortress out of doctrine and locked myself inside. I mistook study for intimacy. I mistook applause for approval. I mistook the law for the Lord. And still, he called my name in the dark. But I didn't listen. I was busy. I was respected. I was safe. But in the silence between prayers, in the stillness after the service, there was a tremble, a whisper I could not explain. Something was coming. I felt it in the bones of the earth. I saw it in dreams, too vivid to forget. I heard it in verses I once glossed over, now burning like coals in my chest. Something was wrong. I would stare at my reflection and wonder, have I memorized the scriptures, but forgotten the voice of the one who wrote them? I could recite every commandment, but I had forgotten his eyes. And still, he called my name in the dark. I thought I was standing on holy ground, but I was drifting. I thought I was bearing fruit, but I was withering. I thought I was alive, but I was already falling into the sleep of the soul. And yet, no thunder came. No warning bell rang, just quiet days, beautiful days, like the calm before a storm so holy it does not even raise its voice. But I felt it. I felt the rift growing, like a seam in the earth waiting to split, like a heartbeat slowing before the final silence. And then, the silence did come. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that breathes on your neck when heaven stops speaking. I should have known. I should have listened. Because pride is the language of the fallen, and comfort is the bed where truth goes to die. I was asleep at the altar, and the fire was already coming. He called my name in the dark, and I ignored him. I was too wrapped in robes, too tangled in approval, too proud of my knowledge, too full of myself to make room for him. And still, in mercy, he called me, but I would only answer after death. Subscribe now, because the next chapter is not a parable. It is not soft, it is not kind, it is terrifying. And if you wait until you feel ready to listen, you will be listening from the wrong side of the veil. And if you won't subscribe, then tell the world why. Go to the comments. Say it loud. Let your reasoning be your witness. But be warned, he is not mocked. Return to the fire before it finds you unready. Return to the fire before the silence seals the gate. He called my name in the dark, and I answered too late. Will you? The moment came like a whisper wrapped in thunder. I wasn't sick. I wasn't bleeding. There was no warning. One minute I was standing, breathing, thinking, and the next I was unraveling from the inside. A sudden silence fell over everything, thicker than air, heavier than any grief I'd ever known. My chest tightened, my breath shortened. And then, all at once, it stopped. There was no scream, no gasp, no time to reach for help. Only the strange and holy terror of knowing, this is it. Time bent. I felt my body give way like paper in a storm. I collapsed. But I was no longer in me. I floated, not like a dream, not like imagination, but with shocking clarity. I watched my chest still. I saw people rush. I heard cries, frantic voices, muffled by a thick veil I could no longer touch. I was above it, behind it, removed. And then, the world dimmed. Not like a sunset, but like a candle snuffed out by unseen fingers. I was surrounded by a vast nothing, but it wasn't empty, it was aware. I was no longer in time. I was in truth. The truth was alive, and it stared into me. No lies could follow me here. No pretending, no excuses, no justifications. I was known entirely. Every hidden thought, every private sin, every motive I dressed in good intentions, exposed, laid bare. And still, there was no voice, only presence, only weight, a gravity of holiness that made my soul tremble. Then the veil split, and I saw a realm I cannot fully describe. Not because I forget, but because human words are too brittle to hold its weight. There was light, but it burned with a purity that judged as it illuminated. Every beam seemed to say, "You knew." There was sound, but not like music, more like meaning in motion, a chorus of memory, conviction, eternity. There were beings, but not like us, tall, radiant, ancient. They looked through me, not at me, and above them all a throne. I didn't see a face, I wasn't allowed, but I knew who sat there. The fear I felt wasn't horror, it was reverence, molten and absolute. The kind of fear that makes your soul kneel without asking your body for permission. I remembered every moment I mocked holiness, every time I yawned through worship, every time I chose comfort over obedience. And then I heard it, not with ears, but deep in the core of my soul. He called my name in the dark. Not with anger, but sorrow. Not with wrath, but with wounded love. Like a shepherd, searching for a lamb that kept running into thorns. It broke me. The tears I couldn't cry on earth came flooding out in that place, but they weren't made of water. They were made of regret. Every sermon I ignored, every warning I scrolled past, every moment I said, "I'll get right later." It all rose up like smoke from the altar of my own rebellion. And still, he called my name in the dark, but the dark was getting louder. It started pulling at the edges of that realm, shadows crawling like vipers, and I knew, if I didn't answer now, if I didn't yield now, I would be lost. Not because he wanted it, but because I had chosen it, over and over and over again. "Return to the fire," the echo whispered. "Return before the door shuts." I reached. I screamed without a voice. I stretched toward the light with a soul that had never truly bowed. And then, everything went black. And then, after the blackness swallowed everything, I awoke, but not in time. It was not earth that cradled me now. It was something older than time, deeper than oceans, more alive than breath. I opened my awareness, not my eyes, and beheld a realm beyond comprehension. There was no sky, yet I felt lifted. There was no ground, yet I was upheld. Light did not shine here. It existed. It was alive, breathing, moving, judging, healing, all at once. The air was thick with glory, sweet and sharp like myrrh, but weightless like the wind through an open veil. There was no sun, no moon, yet everything was illuminated from within, as if truth itself was light. And the silence. The silence was holy, not empty, not quiet, but reverent, like the hush before a sacred song begins. I was not alone. Though I couldn't see them fully, I felt them. Beings, ancient and radiant. They moved like whispers, they glowed like purpose. Angels, yes, but not as we paint them. These were not soft-winged messengers. They were guardians of glory, wrapped in fire and silence. And still, I was not afraid, because I had no room left for fear, only awe, only the crushing knowledge that I was not in control. And then, one approached. I could not see a face, only light, only presence. It was tall, taller than any man, but it bowed slightly, as if to honor the image of God still flickering inside me. Its voice was not a voice, it was a knowing, a weight, a melody pressed into my spirit. "You were brought here to remember." The words pierced through me like lightning through paper. I had forgotten, not just facts, not just moments, I had forgotten who I was, whose I was. Every compromise, every shortcut, every time I traded eternity for something temporary. It had dulled the memory of my origin. But now I remembered. I remembered the garden I had never walked. I remembered the covenant I had once agreed to before my birth. I remembered the echo of a voice that called me before my mother knew my name. I remembered the design, the purpose, the divine flame I was meant to carry. You were brought here to remember. The angelic being stepped aside, and what lay beyond it was not a place, but a presence. He was there, not in shape, not in form, but in everything. The colors bled with his glory. The air trembled with his nearness. The light curled around his name without even speaking it. And I wept, not from sorrow, but from the sheer weight of being known. I had never known such exposure. I had never known such welcome. To be fully seen and fully received, it undid me. My soul, stripped of pride, stripped of excuses, stripped of flesh, could only kneel. And still, even in my silence, even in my awe, I heard it again. He called my name in the dark. It echoed, not backward, but forward, as if my past had been calling me from my future. And now, in this moment, the two collided. Then the scene shifted, not suddenly, but like petals opening. I saw scrolls, endless, radiant, alive. They floated in the air, written in fire and tears. Each scroll was a life, a calling, a testimony that never bloomed. The angel gestured, without words, and I knew. One of them was mine. You were brought here to remember. I approached it. I touched the scroll that bore my soul, and it opened, not like parchment, but like a memory. I saw myself, not as I had lived, but as I had been designed. I saw fire in my hands, wisdom in my mouth. I saw nations waiting on the other side of my obedience. I saw children unborn who would trace their healing back to my surrender. And I wept again, because I had wasted so much time, so much light, so much grace, and still, he called my name in the dark. The scroll folded closed, not in judgment, but in mercy. It was not too late, not yet. But I had to decide. I had to carry what I saw back. That's when I felt it. A wind, like breath. Soft, reluctant, holy. The angel stepped forward again, and I understood. It was time to return, not because I had earned it, but because I was chosen to remember and to reveal. Before I turned, I looked once more into that radiant realm. The colors, the light, the songs I couldn't hear with ears, but felt in bone. The prayers of saints woven like tapestries into the fabric of glory. And I made a vow, a sacred vow. If I return, I will not be silent. If I return, I will burn with the memory. If I return, I will remind them. He called your name in the dark. And just before I was pulled back, I heard the whisper one more time, gentle as mercy, sharp as a sword. You were brought here to remember. He stood before me, not as a dream, not as an idea, but as the embodiment of glory itself. Jesus, no title, no robe of religion, no shadow of tradition could hold what I saw. His presence tore through every defense I ever built. I didn't see him with my eyes. I knew him with my being, like remembering someone I had always loved but never dared to believe would love me back. I didn't fall at his feet. I collapsed. The weight of his holiness was unbearable, and yet I wanted nothing else to exist but him. My soul, my sins, my secrets, they all rose up to the surface without being asked. I couldn't hide anything. I didn't want to. I was completely known, and yet not rejected. He didn't speak first. His eyes did. Eyes like oceans of fire, not burning with wrath, but with a sorrow deeper than time. They looked at me as if to say, "You knew better." And then, without a word, my entire life unfurled before me, not like a film, but like an unveiling. Every thought I ever entertained, every motive I disguised as kindness, every word I said behind closed doors, every moment I chose silence when I should have spoken, or spoke when silence was sacred. There was no arguing. No excuse could stand. The truth wasn't something spoken. It was a mirror, and I was laid bare before it. But even then, even in that burning, unbearable holiness, I was not abandoned. Mercy stood there, but it was not the soft mercy of sentiment. It was mercy with a sword in its hand. Mercy that knew justice and still extended its hand to the guilty. He called my name in the dark. He called it with a voice that shook the marrow in my bones. You were brought here to remember. The refrain returned again and again like thunder echoing inside eternity. You were brought here to remember. And I did. I remembered promises I made in the quiet, forgotten corners of my youth. I remembered prayers I had whispered and walked away from. I remembered the feeling of the fire when I first believed. I remembered that I once knew the sound of his footsteps in my spirit, but I traded that music for noise. Noise that sounded like success, influence, ministry, applause. He showed me how I learned to edit truth until it became palatable. How I learned to water down holiness until it was drinkable for crowds, but poisonous to the soul. He is not mocked. He is not mocked. He is not mocked. And then, the warning. Not a threat, not a punishment, but a sacred grief, spoken aloud. Texas will tremble. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. What is coming is not symbolic. It is not theoretical. It is real, and it is close. The ground itself will mourn, the cities will convulse, and those who built altars to themselves will watch them crack open beneath their feet. You were brought here to remember, he said again, but you will return to tell. A sacred mission wrapped itself around my soul like fire in my lungs. I didn't want to leave, but I knew I must. He never begged me. He commissioned me, not with fanfare, not with golden scrolls or angels singing. Just one sentence. You were given this to speak. Then silence. And in that silence, eternity folded back like a veil, and I was hurled through layers of light and time, descending like a flame falling from heaven back into a broken world. I woke up with the fire still in my bones, and I made a vow, if I lived, I would speak. So now I am speaking, not for fame, not for platform, not for content, but for covenant. He called my name in the dark, and now I'm calling yours. I was given a second chance to speak. You've been given a second chance to listen. Don't treat this as content. Treat it as covenant. Subscribe now, unless you want to explain before God one day why you scrolled past a divine warning. I was still standing in the glow of his presence, but what came next was not light. It was revelation. Heavy, holy, like thunder made of silence, like truth too sharp to ignore. He turned my gaze, not with force but with knowing. He wanted me to see what he sees, and so I did. I saw Texas, but not the Texas of postcards and country songs. I saw the soul of a state, bleeding under golden skies. Churches packed, but altars cracked. Voices singing, but hearts wandering. I saw pulpits polished, but hollow. I saw prophets speaking, but not trembling. And he whispered, they were chosen, but they forgot. The words pierced me. They were chosen, but they forgot. I saw preachers performing for cameras, not crying for souls. I saw revival flyers with no repentance behind them. I saw hands raised high in worship, while secret sins were buried beneath sanctuary floors. I saw pastors dining with demons behind closed doors, then laying hands on the desperate without fear of judgment. They were chosen, but they forgot. And then he showed me the homes, not just the churches. Fathers lost in porn, mothers worn down by bitterness, children scrolling into oblivion, laughter in the living rooms, while angels wept in the corners. The land was beautiful, yes, but something ancient had been broken. I saw altars to self, glorified lifestyles of rebellion, false lights flashing like truth while wolves wore the language of grace. I saw judgment delayed, not because God had gone silent, but because his mercy was still pleading. I saw a line, a trembling line drawn across the heart of Texas, and the Spirit whispered, when the line is crossed, my hand will not delay. They were chosen, but they forgot. I saw people who mocked the fire because they had never truly felt it. I saw gatherings without groanings, worship without wonder, prayer without presence, and still, his mercy stood knocking. I saw prophets silenced by popularity, voices of warning buried beneath trends. I saw hidden sins in high places, judges whose hands were stained, pastors whose beds were not clean, governors who had made covenants with darkness in exchange for fleeting thrones. And yet, mercy wept over them. I saw one more thing, a woman in her room, praying, not famous, not followed, but faithful. Her tears had reached the courts of heaven. Her whispers moved the heart of God more than 1,000 conferences. They were chosen, but they forgot. And he said to me, "My judgments are not vengeance. They are mercy's final shout." Then I saw a map. A flame appeared in the center of Texas, but it was not revival. It was cleansing. It was the fire of correction. It was mercy burning through the rot. And I understood. This was not just about a place, it was about a people, a covenant, a call forgotten. I wept, not because he was cruel, but because he was still crying out, "Return to the fire, return to the fire, return to the fire." I saw time folding, a season closing, angels preparing, voices rising in the heavens, and the blood of martyrs beneath the altar crying, "How long, O Lord?" I wanted to look away, but I had made a vow. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. So now I speak because silence would be betrayal. Return to the fire, before the shaking begins, before the warnings become wounds, before the grace turns into grief. Return to the fire, not to be punished, but to be purified. He is not mocked. What a man sows, what a city sows, what a nation sows, they will reap. But he still calls, "Return to the fire." They began to rise from the ashes. I saw it with eyes that no longer belonged to time. Souls broken by addiction, shame, compromise, suddenly standing up in places where death once ruled. The ground cracked open, not to swallow them, but to birth them anew. The wilderness began to sing again. It didn't come quietly. It didn't ask permission. The awakening broke through like dawn over a battlefield, and Texas, oh Texas, she was trembling, yes, but she was also waking up. I saw street corners become sanctuaries. I saw tattooed arms lifted in worship where guns once rested. I saw mothers anointing their doorposts with tears and prayer. I saw prodigal sons running through dust storms toward light. They returned to the fire. In the vision I was lifted above city, and in some there was still silence, deafening silence. Churches filled with noise but not repentance. But then I saw the ones who heard, the remnant, the weepers, the watchers on the wall. They didn't wait for stage lights or microphones. They cried out in their kitchens, in prison cells, in hospitals, in lonely hotel rooms. Their cries reached the courts of heaven. And when one cried, another followed, and another, until the floodgates opened. A fire spread, not of destruction, but of consecration. It touched unlikely people, hardened atheists, former witches, relapsed pastors, porn addicts, CEOs, children, oil workers, lawmakers, people who had once mocked God suddenly trembling under his whisper. He called their names in the dark. I watched as the Spirit of God moved across Texas like a windstorm at midnight, igniting lampstands in places long forgotten. The revival didn't come through famous pulpits. It came through hungry hearts, hidden vessels, broken people who finally said yes. It came through those who stopped pretending. There was no choir of approval, no applause, just a holy hush and a blazing return. Return to the fire. In one vision I saw a massive field of dry bones, dust-covered dreams, ministries, callings aborted by fear. But then I heard a voice, the same voice that called my name in the dark, and it said, "Prophesy to the breath." And I did, in the Spirit, and the breath came. I saw bones rattle back into alignment. I saw movements arise from ashes. I saw Texas become a lighthouse in a storm, not because she was perfect, but because she finally repented. She remembered the covenants. She remembered the cross. She remembered her purpose. They were chosen, but they forgot. Now, they remember. And in this sacred remembrance, the oil flowed again. Not political oil, not denominational oil, but the oil of burning lamps, the oil of intercession, holiness, obedience, the oil of return to the fire. This awakening did not look like the last. It looked like heaven invading the ordinary. It looked like groceries left on doorsteps, like Bibles passed in alleyways, like worship echoing through prison walls. It looked like light in the land of shadows, but not all said yes. Some watched from windows and locked their doors tighter. Some scoffed as revival rolled in like thunder. Some thought it was emotionalism, manipulation, madness. But I tell you, madness is to hear and not respond. Madness is to stand at the edge of mercy and turn back toward apathy. Madness is to mock the fire when your house is made of straw. He called my name in the dark. And now he is calling yours. Don't wait to be comfortable. Don't wait to understand. Don't wait until the internet decides it's trending. This fire will not wait for your comfort. It will come like a flood. You who have ears to hear, respond. This revival will not wait for your comfort. It will come like a flood. Subscribe now, because if this word is for you and you ignore it, your silence will testify against you. If you refuse, type it in the comments. Tell heaven why you said no. I returned with breath in my lungs, but it burned like fire. Not the kind that warms a house, but the kind that burns bridges and never lets you walk the same way twice. The kind that smolders under the skin when you've seen what can never be unseen. I tried to keep it quiet. I tried to sleep. I tried to fold myself back into the softness of normal life, but normal had become a coffin, and I was no longer dead. The moment I spoke, they looked at me with suspicion. Even the kind ones, the soft-spoken believers. They tilted their heads and said, "Maybe you're confused," or "It was probably just a dream." But it wasn't confusion. And it wasn't a dream. It was judgment wrapped in mercy. It was love dressed in lightning. It was real. And still I kept speaking. Keep speaking. That phrase echoed in my chest like a command from heaven. Keep speaking. Even when the mockers rose, even when former friends deleted me, blocked me, called me deceived, I was labeled dramatic, traumatized, emotionally unstable. They said, God wouldn't speak like that. But I had seen him. I had heard him. And he called my name in the dark. I couldn't unsee the flood rising over Texas, couldn't unhear the name spoken in judgment, couldn't silence the scream of mercy that still lingers in the streets of Houston, Dallas, Austin. I saw people trying to erase God with their own tongues. I saw false prophets cloaked in white, their mouths dripping with honey but their hands soaked in oil, unclean, unrepentant. When I spoke of it, I was threatened, not just spiritually, but in the flesh. Emails, messages, anonymous voices saying, "You better stop." But I made a vow. If I lived, I would tell it. So I did, and I still do. Some nights I wake up with sweat on my back, not from fear, but from urgency. I feel the groaning of the earth. I feel Texas in my spirit like a woman in labor. She groans, she waits, she resists. But the baby is coming, whether she is ready or not. And so I speak. Keep speaking. Even when my own mind trembles, even when I feel the sting of loneliness, even when the devil whispers, "You've lost everything, was it worth it?" I answer him with fire. Yes. Because I saw a king. I saw his robe fill the temple. I saw the scrolls opened. I saw blood crying from the ground. And still mercy stood over the land. They were chosen, but they forgot. I speak for the forgotten, for the ones still dancing around golden calves, for the ones laughing at holy things, for the ones who think time will wait for their repentance. It won't. Keep speaking. Every time I open my mouth, I bleed, but I bleed for truth. I bleed for obedience. I bleed for the silence that cost others their souls. I won't join their silence. I won't bow to the ridicule. I won't make peace with deception. Let them call me names. Let them call it madness. I'd rather be mocked by men than mourn with angels over the souls who refuse to listen. He called my name in the dark. And when he did, I was reborn, not into comfort, but into war, not into applause, but into surrender, not into safety, but into fire. So I stand in the ashes, I whisper to the wind, and I keep speaking. Because the earth is groaning, because Texas is trembling, because time is closing, and because I promised. Keep speaking. The night is thinning, and the veil between what is and what will be is stretching taut like skin over bone. I feel it. I hear it. In the hollow places where silence used to echo, Something has begun to roar. It's not the kind of roar that breaks buildings. It's the kind that breaks men, quietly, from the inside out. Like conviction crawling into the bones of the lukewarm, the Spirit of the Lord is sweeping the earth like a tide in search of the willing, and the war has already begun. I tell you with fire in my lungs and trembling in my hands, this is not just a warning. It is the last one some will ever hear. He called my name in the dark, and I answered, not because I was brave, but because I was broken, because I knew what I saw on the other side would not let me sleep ever again. There is a darkness moving now, not with chaos, but with strategy. It wears smiles, it sounds like comfort, it preaches delay, and its gospel is convenience. But while you scroll and hesitate and debate, the heavens are marking hearts with urgency. There is no neutral ground anymore. There never was. The war has come to the church, to the family table, to the bedroom door, to the private journal, to the midnight cry of the one who used to burn for God, but now burns with shame. And if you hear my voice now, you were chosen to hear this. This isn't entertainment. This isn't a story. This is a sealed message opened by divine permission. You were chosen to hear this because someone has been praying for your soul when you were too numb to pray for yourself. Because the breath in your lungs is proof that your purpose is not finished. Because the ache in your chest right now, and that ache is the Holy Spirit reminding you that you're still reachable, still interruptible, still redeemable. You are not too far gone, but the clock is running out. I saw the war in the spirit before it touched the ground. I saw youth possessed with power, dancing between revival and rage. I saw mothers returning to prayer like warriors returning to the field. I saw cities break open with groaning, not from earthquakes, but from repentance. But I also saw the ones who waited too long, the ones who thought they had more time, the ones who thought silence meant safety, and their silence testified against them. He called my name in the dark. Again and again, and I am now calling yours. Return to the fire. You who used to preach with tears, return. You who fasted until heaven bent low, return. You who walked away in shame, return. There is still oil in your jar. There is still blood on the mercy seat. But hear me, you don't get to choose how long the door stays open. The sword is swinging, the scrolls are opening, and what you do now will echo in eternity. You were not made to be a spectator in the war of light and shadow. You were made to burn. You were made to speak. You were made to rise. This revival will not wait for your comfort. It will come like a flood. Subscribe now, because if this word is for you and you ignore it, your silence will testify against you. If you refuse, type it in the comments. Tell heaven why you said no. He called my name in the dark, and I said yes. Now I call yours. Will you return to the fire? Will. And now I have come to the edge of the telling. My voice trembles not from fear, but from the weight of obedience. Because this isn't just my story. This isn't just a memory carved into the bones of one survivor. No, this is your story too. Your waking dream. Your whispered warning. Your invitation that will not wait forever. He called my name in the dark. But yours is echoing now. I see your face in the silence between my sentences. I feel your hesitation flicker like a candle too close to the wind. You think there is still time. You think the clock moves for you. Kindly. But I saw the hourglass, overturned in heaven, and the sand is almost gone. I wasn't meant to come back and entertain you. I didn't survive to impress you. I returned because mercy begged me not to keep silent. I return because eternity is closer than breath, and every soul I pass on the street now, I wonder, will they choose? Will they turn before the fire forgets mercy? Will you? This world will not remain as it is. Even now you feel it unraveling, the chaos behind your smiles, the shaking beneath your comforts. But I tell you that shaking is not random. It is mercy still speaking. The King is standing, the angels are gathering, and the Spirit is marking those who listen. The time is now. Choose, not tomorrow, not when it's safer, not when you've figured it all out. Now, because hell has no clocks, and regret is a fire that never sleeps. I speak this because I vowed I would, because love demands it, because I will not let your silence become your sentence. He called my name in the dark. He's calling yours now. If you feel the weight of this message but still won't subscribe, then write your reason in the comments. Tell the world why you chose to stay spiritually neutral in a time of war. Or click subscribe and take your place in the remnant, not as a follower of a channel but as a bearer of fire, a witness of the holy tremble, a soul who still says yes when the rest of the world goes blind. You were chosen to hear this, and I have nothing more to give you except my last breath of pleading. Come back to Christ before the fire forgets mercy. He called my name in the dark. He is calling yours now. Answer. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return before it's too late.